The title was The Big Society, and it was at the beginning an exploration of what are these ideas that come under the big society, but actually it's much more about what's the relationship between the transition movement and political power. So the big society is meant to be about empowering communities to take action, to take over assets, to run them themselves. And there certainly are elements of that, but actually the big society is associated with a whole range of other things, with in particular deregulation, which enables big business to do a lot more with the cuts. And so transition's relationship with something which on its surface appears really to have stolen many of transition's ideas, not that we didn't steal them ourselves from other people before that, is quite problematic, because the degree to which the state should be playing a role and the degree to which the state is actually at the moment saying we're not going to play that enabling role is something that's very important for us. So just to give you one example, associated with the whole big society is a belief that we don't really need national targets or frameworks. Local people will decide on a local basis and somehow that'll all work out. Well, in the context of climate change, I think that's terrifying. We have, thank goodness, got the Climate Change Act, we've got nationally agreed targets. I may feel that they're not ambitious enough, but at least we've got them. And now we're hearing from the Department of Communities and Local Government that under the localism agenda, under the big society agenda, those targets, how local authorities themselves feed into those targets is entirely up to them. Well, you know, local authorities are, particularly in times when the cash is short, they're not really going to want to take on new obligations. So I think, you know, from a transition perspective, the big society is very definitely something we need to understand, but not something to necessarily engage wholeheartedly with. Well, given that transition is about trying to facilitate, encourage local adaptability, local resilience, and how we then engage with the political process and political agendas that maybe run very contrary to the things we're trying to achieve is a kind of, I think, a really crucial question for us. But underpinning it is how to engage with power, really. And although transition starts from a very simple premise, you know, community-led responses to climate change and peak oil, seeking to maximise resilience and happiness or well-being, that has lots of bits underneath it. Because actually, for me personally, community-led response means that we have to look at then issues around fairness and justice and being able to access the resources, particularly when they're scarce. Which leads to models of community ownership, I hope, moving away from thinking that we have to own everything ourselves privately. Well, that does then have political implications, and I think that means that transition initiatives need to be very clear when they're engaging with political power, with political structures, that some of the things we do fit with current political agendas, some of the things we do don't, and we can be friendly and have a great relationship with people, but actually we still want things that maybe they don't want. So I mean, that's at the core of it, is actually being comfortable with living with that tension and not assuming it'll all just be straightforward. The conference's focus on identity and belonging and how we actually find ourselves should link through to how we then relate to everyone else, let alone to political power. And I think it probably does, but I think we need to be careful, because there's a flip side to the finding, the belonging, the sense of identity, and it can lead to a kind of drawing down, shutting the gates and putting up fences and actually making people feel that incomers aren't welcome, for example. So I think as long as that sense of belonging leads to actually a greater offering of hospitality, a greater welcoming of other people, other ideas, then I think it's enormously powerful, and is powerful too when engaging with the political process. If it leads to kind of inward looking, then I think it's rather dangerous.